Ice baths are everywhere and people swear by immersing themselves into freezing ice-cold water. But the important question is, why? Why do all these people torture themselves like this? What are the reasons people do this and what are the dangers doing so? And most importantly, do ice baths actually work? Let's find out.
It was a cold winter day in the mid-1970s in a somehow unspectacular looking park in the Netherlands, when many people that were probably taking a walk in this nice park couldn't believe their eyes what they were seeing right there. As a young man at the age of 17 suddenly decided not to enjoy the trees and the nature like others, but he headed toward the freezing ice-cold lake in the midst of this park and jumped right into it.
And it was exactly this day, 49 years ago in the Beatrix Park in Amsterdam, when the Iceman was born.
My name is Wim Hof. They call me the Iceman.
Wim is a world record holder in enduring extreme cold. He has set records for swimming beneath ice and being immersed within it.
So how is he able to survive?
Wim Hof, who earned himself the title of the Iceman, became from then on an internationally known extreme athlete that wanted to show the world that there is so much more potential in us than we believed there was. He decided to show the world what humans are really capable of and changed what we thought the human body could achieve. As he set out to subsequently win 15 Guinness World Records, doing things no one thought was possible. He climbed Mount Everest wearing nothing but shorts. He was running a half marathon above the Arctic Cycle, barefoot, wearing only shorts. He set the world record for the farthest swim under ice and the world record for the longest time, 44 minutes, in full body contact with ice at this time.
And everybody asked, how did he do it?
How could he tolerate this cold? Why doesn't he get sick? And why the heck does he even enjoy it? He himself developed a training method called the Wim Hof method, a combination of breathing, meditation and cold exposure exercises, which he since then taught to many people.
He became an internet star and is one of the main reasons why ice baths and cold exposure are now everywhere on the internet.
And nowadays everyone seems to do it, from athletes, celebrities, influencers and many normal people at home. Not to forget that it is until this day a part of the culture of many northern countries. So what is this all about? What are the benefits?
And do ice baths actually work? So before we can dive into this, it has to be said that most information regarding cold exposure and ice baths is a mixture of bro science, myths, small studies and personal experience. We simply don't know enough yet to clearly say what it does exactly and whether the mechanisms really work the way we think they do. And one of the reasons might be that it's really hard to put people into ice baths and conduct the gold standard double-blind placebo-controlled studies without them actually knowing that they're taking ice bath. So take everything said in this video with a grain of salt. Better research is needed to prove or disprove statements, and ideally to really experience what the effects are, you could try it yourself, but please wait until this timestamp or go there directly and watch it from there, where we'll say something about the safety, the dangers of doing so, whether you should do it and how you can do it. Does cold exposure make you less sick? So to answer it directly, maybe. It really isn't clear yet. As stated previously, there's really little good research on this topic. And Wim Hof himself caused a lot of media coverage because he was doing all these crazy cold exposure world records without really ever getting sick. He even participated in a study where he taught a group of young men his Wim Hof method, and the Wim Hof group and a control group then got a deliberate bacteria infection, I think it was E. coli, to see whether the immune response would be any different. And yes, indeed, the Wim Hof group had a significant better immune reaction and didn't get sick whatsoever with almost no symptoms, compared to the control group who got, as expected, seriously sick with fever, headaches, an upset stomach and so on. And the researchers in the study were sure that this proves that you can control or improve your immune system. But they still were not really sure whether it was due to the cold exposure or due to the breath work that was also done in the Wim Hof method. And in another study from the Netherlands, office workers who took a brief cold shower before work had a 29% reduction in sick leave from work. And in another study from 1996, where they did a similar experiment, it was concluded that it could be due to a higher rate of metabolism after cold exposure, which triggers the immune system to be activated a little bit more. Is cold exposure good for recovery after working out? Likely yes, but many studies show that cold water immersion reduces the amount of muscle damage after exercise. Less damage means less inflammation, means less soreness. One study from 2011 and one study from 2017 2016 showed that when athletes did cold water immersion after intense exercise, they had decreased soreness the next day. The problem here is whether you actually want these effects. Muscle damage to a certain degree is the trigger for your body to regenerate and build up your muscles stronger and bigger again. And some scientists question whether it's really that useful to therefore prevent the soreness and muscle damage thereby, because they think that less damage means less inflammation and less muscle growth and strength. And in their opinion, it's probably not the best idea to get into an ice bath immediately after working out, although you might feel more recovered the next day. They think that you would miss potential muscle growth and size. Is cold exposure good for my mental health? Cold exposure is no replacement for therapy, for medication or whatsoever, but it seems like it has some serious positive effects for your mental health. In one study, participants, although they had no clinically diagnosed depression, but still had depressed mood and depressed feelings, had less depressive symptoms after taking 2 cold showers a day. In another case study, they followed up a 24-year-old woman who suffered from depression and anxiety symptoms for already 7 years. And the intervention she undertook was that she started weekly open cold water swimming. She noticed immense mood improvements within a month, and she could reduce her medication. After 4 months, she could stop it altogether. And after a year, they did a follow-up and she was still medication-free. And let's talk again about the previously mentioned office study. Those workers who took cold showers before work were not only less sick, but the majority of them reported better mood as well. And in this literature review called Health Effects of Voluntary Exposure to Cold Water, they summarized that several studies indicate an antidepressive effect of regular cold water exposure. And I think that mental health is somehow a bit more tangible. If I would ask you directly after taking a cold shower whether you feel more regenerated or whether you feel like your immune system works better, it is really hard to tell in this moment. But asking about your mood, that is somehow easier to know. And in fact, many people feel like after taking a cold shower, a cold bath or whatsoever, they feel calmer, happier, more euphoric, less anxious and less depressed. Do I have to be in freezing water? So from my understanding so far, no, especially in the beginning, absolutely not. There's this one study from Denmark where they found out that many of the benefits of cold exposure are achieved when you're about 11 minutes per week in water. That is only as cold so that it makes you uncomfortable, but so that you can somewhat easily and safely stay in there. And this means that it has to be below what you actually would prefer. So it does not even have to be that cold initially. If you normally like to shower in water that is relatively warm, try making it slightly colder every time you shower and you will start seeing these beneficial processes. So just put yourself in an environment where it is slightly colder than you would actually like it to be. You could even, like if it's hoodie weather outside, simply wear a t-shirt when going for work and experience some of the benefits, which is not as mind-blowing as taking an absurdly cold ice bath, but will, especially in the beginning, still offer you a lot of benefits initially. Because here's the thing, the internet and media is filled with all these athletes and celebrities and superhumans doing those sub-zero ice baths, going into cryotherapy chambers below -50°C and doing all these crazy things. But the reality is that, as you saw in the video, research is still very shallow. Of course, athletes try to do everything to improve their performance, but especially on YouTube and social media amongst influencers, ice baths just look sexy. They look freaking cool and extreme, and yes, extreme things without much research always look more interesting than average things like taking a shower that is just a little bit colder. I really feel like this overrepresentation of people taking like these extreme ice baths either leads to people not trying it at all because it looks too risky for them, or it puts people into acute danger because they are unexperienced and because it really can be dangerous and risky. So let's talk about the dangers. If you jump into a cold lake like Wim Hof did without any experience whatsoever, because you want to try all these cool things you saw on the internet, you are risking your life. You could die immediately due to many factors. You could get a panic reaction, cramp up, or get a cold shock and die immediately. Your heart could just stop working, you could drown, you could get hypothermia. First of all, check in with a doctor and listen what he or she says about this. You want to make sure that your health is in check. If you take medication, have illnesses, are untrained, are too young, are too old or sick, you must make sure to talk with your doctor and that he or she approves of it. Then, especially when you start out, always do cold exposure with a partner. With a partner that could help you if something would happen to you, so that you don't drown, get a cold shock or collapse, because this can also happen at home in a cold shower if you're not used to it, so always do it with the second person. And further, start slow and give yourself time. As I mentioned, showers that are just slightly more uncomfortably cold do the trick initially and will also start to give you the benefits. Work your way slowly up. Over many weeks, slowly stay a bit longer or make it a bit colder. But don't immediately do ice baths or do too much in the beginning. Finally, never ever do any kind of breath work before your cold exposure or during your cold exposure. Breath work, like for example included in the Wim Hof method, where Wim Hof especially says as well that you should not do it during or before your cold exposure. Because you could pass out and die, and there indeed have been many cases where this happened and where people did not safely follow the instructions and died. And I've linked an article about this down below. And generally, I am no expert. I'm just someone who enjoys cold exposure. But if you want to develop some serious knowledge about this, then I have linked many good sources in the description in the comments down below so that you can learn from real experts. So what is my opinion? I love cold exposure and I alternate between cold showers and cold plunges. I'm not sure whether I get sick less often, but I think so. But the main reason I do it is because I feel awesome afterwards and this positive feeling stays well into the day. A cold shower in the morning is for me way better than a coffee and it will give me much energy and motivation. And cold plunges in the afternoon will relieve my stress and simply make me feel good. So I like cold exposure very much, but the science behind it simply isn't clear yet. If you want to get less sick, have better mental health and better recovery, then you absolutely have to get your sleep right. And I've made an own video about this, so you can click here and learn why and how you can improve your sleep.